Let's start this out. Cool. Alright, I'm ready. So what's up, everybody? This is Bronson with Yellowhorn Productions. I'm here just to do a nice little photo editing thing for everybody. Before we start here, I'd just like to say, I'd like to mention that I taught myself everything when it comes to photography. I taught myself how to edit, I taught myself how to shoot. I learned everything by myself. I've always loved art. My main thing, my whole point with this whole conversation right now is art is 100% subjective. It's all opinion. One person can like one thing, the other person won't. You know, it's all subjective. So the main thing here is if you've come to this video to provide constructive criticism, that's fine. I don't mind that. I always like discussion and just good talks. I like that stuff. But if you're here to be like, oh, you're doing that wrong, or oh, that's not how I would do it, or like, oh, that looks bad, this, whatever, f you, straight up, like 100% go f yourself. Like, again, art is art. There's no such thing as bad art. I don't care what anybody says. Like, it can be the most disgusting thing, whatever. If it's art to somebody, it's art. End of discussion. All right, so I'm gonna show you guys my process in regards to how I edit. As of right now, I'm just gonna give you a quick lowdown of everything. This whole setup right now that we're on right now, Nikon Z6 II with a 50mm 1.8, Nikon Z6 with a 14 to 28mm 2.8, but on 14mm. We want that nice wide shot. And for me, the category of the picture that won that I'm going to edit today, and thank you for voting on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. I appreciate you guys. Like, I love you. You guys are awesome. It was wildlife. You guys picked wildlife. I love wildlife. Like, that's awesome. And if your category wasn't picked, that's okay. We're going to do another poll probably next week or something. Do a video just like this. This is fun. I actually kind of like this. I'm kind of excited to like edit this later. It's going to be kind of cool. All right, so let's get started. Let's do this. I'm just getting ahead of myself talking. So let's get to editing. And I'm gonna go ahead and go through like my thought process as I'm editing here. And typically each photo that I edit, I don't like apply a filter. I don't apply like a LUT or anything like that. I don't like doing that stuff because, you know, each photo to me is different. You know, there's gonna be different lighting depending on what you're shooting. The subject's gonna move differently. The shadows on their face are gonna be different. Like, everything's gonna be different each photo. Unless it's like a super quick sequence of like super fast shutter speed, then yeah, I might edit, like, I might copy and paste and like, you know, throw the same stuff that I should, you know what I'm talking about. But for this, I'm just gonna start clean. This is raw. Let me go to the settings here so you can see what I shot at. And yeah, you can see the cursor hopefully. Yeah, so this is, I shot with the Nikon Z6 II. It was at 600mm, so it was at full bore. 1/1600th of a second, f6.3 at about 1250 ISO. So those are my settings. That's what I shot at. Shot in full frame to get that shot. All right, so let's get right into the editing now. So this is what I'm gonna look at first. So I take a look here. I'm like, all right, well, this is a nice composed, like there's like a little bit of dead space over here on the right. Kind of want the focal point to be dead in the middle, but a little bit of extra space sometimes isn't that bad, so I'm not gonna really focus on that too much. The first thing that I'll do when I get into a photo like this, especially for wildlife, is well, one, I feel like it's a little crooked, so I'll go to this this crop section here, and there's an automatic straighten. Sometimes this works great, sometimes it doesn't, so I'll hit it and see what it does. All right, so that's perfect. Sometimes what it'll do is I'll hit that and it'll just like, it'll turn out like this, and it's like, yeah, that's straight, and I'm like, no, it's not. What are you talking about, Adobe? So we're gonna go ahead and straighten again and hit done. So there we go. The photo is now straightened. It's beautiful. I didn't have to screw around with it. I didn't have to like tweak it myself because it actually did it correctly with the auto setting. So good, that's exactly what we want. Nice and straight. I might even crop in a little bit just so I can get a little bit of this dead space out of here. So I'm gonna crop in a little bit and kind of take note of this middle section right in here. So I'm gonna use these squares as like a little bit of a reference of like where my center point is, where I want my focal point of this photo to be, where your eyes are drawn immediately when you start looking at the photo. I'd like it to be dead in the center. Like, I'd like the duck to be in the dead center, as that is. So that's, I don't know, we'll call that close enough. I like it, sure. We can always adjust that later. It might not be perfect right now, but we'll get it there. Wow, I really like this photo, by the way. The next thing that I'd like to do is I like to go into detail, and I always, especially if I'm gonna be posting on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that, man, they destroy your resolution and your sharpening and stuff like that. So I like to automatically just bump my sharpening up a lot, just so I can, nope, that's not what I want. Just so I can get all the little full details of everything nice and crispy. So when I zoom in, everything's looking good. It's still, I could have used a little bit faster of a shutter, but it was pretty good. It looks like the focus was like on his butt mostly, and his back, which is fine. Duck butts are cute, take it, it's fine. All right, so then after sharpening it, what I like to do is I'd like to see the shadows, if I can bump them up a little bit. And anytime I go into these settings here, you're gonna see a lot of just like screwing around. Because again, each photo is very different. It's not like, all right, this is gonna be this is gonna be this, I'm gonna go into this photo and I know I need to do this, and that, and it has to be at that setting. No, like it's never like that with me. I always like go in nice and fresh. So for this, what I do is I grab this shadows tab here, and you can kind of go like back and forth like this to kind of like see. So I'm gonna bring the shadows out so that way things kind of brighten up a little bit here, but I don't want to be too much and like blow the photo out. So I think that that's pretty good. That's nice and brightened up. I'm also gonna take the highlights and I like to kind of bring them down a bit. That's also gonna allow for a lot of detail to start coming out. You see how all this here is, it's very bright. It's very bright, it's kind of washed out. It's not like 100%, it's still a little bit blurry, but it's still a little bit washed out. So I like to kind of correct that with kind of bringing the highlights down a bit so you can see that there's a little bit more detail now coming in here. But also you gotta keep in mind that the moment that you drop these down, your highlights, your photo's gonna seem like it's a little bit darker now. And in order to bring that up, you can go to your exposure if you want, and bring that up. But again, you don't want to add a lot of noise into your photo. And if you want to expose everything, you expose the exposure, or bring the exposure up. I personally don't like doing that just because that's usually the last setting that I would like to adjust, because if I'm moving the exposure, that's kind of like moving all the light in the photo, and I just kind of like fine-tuning stuff. I like to try to get as best as I can in camera and then be able to do little micro adjustments in editing. And I like to make sure that I'm not over editing by like visualizing what I actually saw in person and just trying to like nail those colors down, trying to nail that focus down that I personally saw in my head. I want you to see what I'm seeing. So I don't like to like go nuts with saturation and vibrance and all that stuff. Let's get back to, I'm getting ahead of myself. This is the first time I'm doing this. I don't know, I'm sorry if I'm all over the place, but hopefully you're keeping up. So another way to brighten it up, now that you've brought down the highlights here, is if you go to whites and you kind of bring those up too. But again, it's gonna almost kind of contradict what you did with the highlights. So I like to kind of go back and forth just to kind of see like, where's it gonna be too much? Where's it gonna be, So I'm gonna kind of throw it like right here. I know that that's not too much, but I'm also gonna bring the blacks up a bit too, just to kind of see what we're looking at here. Now I like the detail in the shadows that I'm seeing right here. I really like that a lot. So I want to make sure that that's not blown out. I'm gonna kind of bring this about here. And then also if you bring contrast down a little bit too, that also kind of brightens things up. But again, you're losing contrast, so you might lose what you want in that photo. So I think I'm honestly gonna keep contrast the same. And I might go back to all these settings and change them up a little bit. I'm actually gonna bring contrast up a little bit just because, again, I'm really liking what these are turning into. So let's go down a little bit here. So we already did detail, we're good on that. Now I'm gonna go into the effects tab just to kind of see if there's anything here that I wanna mess with. One is gonna be dehaze. This can drastically change your photo. So like if I bring this all down here, see how it darkens it up real good? It brings all the haze out of the photo if you got that, and then you can also input some into there as well. So kind of brighten it up as well. It's just another little way to brighten things up, turn things down. Clarity is another good one too. If you want to add some like dreamy look, I guess, to it, and it kind of like softens things a bit. But again, this is a wildlife photo. I want everything to be nice and sharp and crisp, and I want you to see every detail of the animal. I want you to be able to like smell the animal through the eyes. What the f did that even mean? All right, so we're gonna go back here to clarity, and we're gonna see if we can bump it up a little bit and make sure it doesn't look gross though, because sometimes when you bump clarity up, it might bring like too much contrast and darkness into the photo, so that might mess you up a little bit. But it really brought these guys out. It clarified the detail, so that's good. Sometimes you can throw texture up a little bit, but you're really just kind of playing around by adding tons of noise into your photo. The moment that you add sharpness, texture, stuff like that, you're adding noise. Now, sometimes noise is good. Sometimes people like that. A little noise is okay. You can do noise reduction in your detail tab, but the moment that you do noise reduction, you're gonna soften the crap out of your photo. And you know, that's not what I want in a wildlife photo. So I want some noise in there, but I really don't want to soften anything up. So we're kind of getting close here, and I love how all these little water droplets are popping out. The more that I'm bringing out the colors that I saw in real life, right? So bringing everything out here. So we're getting there. We're getting there to this photo. I don't like to really over edit anything. So now I could adjust the colors, but before I do that, I'm gonna show you guys another little trick that I like to do a lot with these photos. Now, you see how his face, we got some good shadow going on here, right? What I like to do sometimes is to brighten up the face specifically a little bit, just to make sure, you know, I mean, he's got a face, he's got a little personality. You're gonna wanna show that in a photo. You know, it's the subject, it's a beautiful animal. So I'm gonna grab, or let me talk to you about it. I'm gonna go to the right side here and hit selective editing, okay, or selective correction, whatever it is. Hit the plus sign here. You hit the first one, or your first guy there, first brush. This is gonna be your size of your brush. So it's gonna go down, up, whatever. And then all these are, you know, your feather, you know, how much feathering you want around it, and your flow. But you know what, before we do that, we're gonna make sure we zoom in to the area that we want. So that way we get it very specific and we don't have to go crazy here. So I'm gonna bring this about there. That's a good size. And then I'm gonna start coloring his face, all right? So that brush size was a bit big, but that's okay. I'm gonna go ahead and hit erase, and erase around the areas that I don't want to brighten up. Okay, so that's about good, I think. Yeah, and then maybe it's gonna, I just want the subject to be changed, not its background or anything of that nature. So with his face now, like this, it looks super weird here. You can turn that red off. I like to kind of have it on. I like to know where I'm editing here. So now these settings that we were just in are now only adjusting specifically to this area. So if we go ahead and go to light, and I can go ahead and go to exposure here and bring his face and brighten it up. Like I can brighten it up a lot, you know, like that's obviously way too much, but I'm gonna brighten it up just a hair, just a bit. And then take a look at the highlights. And again, I'm just kind of going back and forth just to kind of see what's going to bring it out the most without blowing the colors out. We're gonna bring out the shadows a little bit more in his face too. Again, we don't want to go overboard on any of these. We just want to make sure that we can see his face. Maybe so if I bring the blacks out too much, you see how it's gonna be like cloudy almost here? We don't want that. So we're gonna bring that way back down. So I mean, that's pretty good. I might maybe bring the contrast down a hair on him. Just a hair, yeah. I think that's good. And then maybe sometimes, like while we're here, maybe we can add a little bit more clarity to his face. Maybe that'll bring a little bit more, more detail out. We can also dehaze a bit if we want to, but I'm not going to. I think that's good. I don't want to add noise or any other sharpness, maybe a little bit of sharpness, just to kind of, yeah, that's good, I like it. All right, cool, so that's dope. We got his face brightened up a bit. And again, it's not too crazy. Another thing that I like doing too as I'm editing, like mid-edit, I will also look at my before and after, okay, like as I'm editing. So this is the after, this is what it looks like, and then if you press and hold down on the picture, it'll show you your before, okay? And then if you let go, it'll show you your after. So this is before, see how his face is all dark, even all these water droplets on the right side of him are not showing up right now, but bringing out the brightness, bringing out the shadows, things of that nature, allowing things to reflect better in your photo, you're gonna bring that stuff out in the after. As we can see, we got all these beautiful drops going on here. His face is brightened up a lot, and we got a lot of nice detail going on here. So that's cool. I really like where this is headed now. This is looking really, really nice. We're basically almost done. What I like to do also sometimes is like if the colors, again, I shoot in typically neutral for photos, typically neutral or some sort of like very flat profile, just because again, I don't really want to alter, I don't want the camera to alter the colors. I want everything to be as natural as possible. I like natural things, you know? So we're gonna make sure we can maintain that. So when I go to adjust vibrance, saturation, things of that nature, again, I wanna make sure that the focal point of the picture is, you know, blasting out in your face. I want you to look dead at it. So if we can go ahead and maybe go to vibrance, we can kind of, so if we go again back and forth, we can kind of see what kind of adjustments we're looking at here. And again, we don't want it to be too much because it almost looks cartoonish. Like that's, I mean, it looks dope, but it's fake. I don't like that, you know? Like it looks great, but I don't really like that. So yeah, maybe bring this up a hair, a little bit of saturation, maybe bring that down a little bit. So that's about good. It's about good. Now, another cool thing that I like to do now that they've added the feature is color grading in Lightroom. And you can screw your photo up so hard with this. You can make everything look so bad. I'll just show you. So these are your highlights on the right here. These are your mids, and then these are your shadows, as you can see all down here. So I really basically only like to adjust the highlights. So let's say I want this photo to look like it's in like golden hour, right? Like, so you want to add a little bit like of tints of like sun to your photo. So you grab the highlights, which I brought down a lot, so this we'll see. So you grab your highlights and you bring it on over to the color that you want the highlights to be. So as you can see, it kind of looks like, you know, maybe we've added a little bit of evening sun to the photo, okay? So that's pretty good. I like that a lot. So let's see about the blend on that, see if we get it a little bit brighter. That's way bright. Again, I brought these highlights way down. So these settings that I'm doing, they're not crazy, which is good. Again, I'm not trying to go full bore with this editing. bring the luminance up and down with it. Just again, you're bringing out the brightness of your highlights kind of up and down here. So as I bring it up, we have the feathers on the back are kind of blown out a little bit. As we bring it down, we get a little bit more detail, but it's a little bit more dull. So kind of dead in the middle is kind of where we want it to be. So I'm not really gonna mess around with the luminance at all. Yeah, other than that, I think that should be it for this photo. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I don't want to really go too nuts with it. I didn't go back to any of these settings. Yeah, I think that is good. And I hope you guys think that that's good too. So again, we're gonna go ahead and show you the before. So this is before all the adjustments that I just did. This is straight out of the camera. This is what I shot that day. Obviously my exposure wasn't perfect, but hey, I mean, it's good for what you can do, especially without a flash and from that distance, so it's not bad. You can get what you get, especially with wildlife. You get what you get. Nature is nature, you know, you can't control it. So then we'll show you the after the adjustments here. And everything is nice and colorful. We have all the lights coming out. We have all the highlights kind of dimmed down. The detail is looking really nice. Yeah, I dig this. I'm gonna go ahead and post this now.